on to the proper discussion.
I just didn't want to edit myself, so yeah. I was like, I'm not changing these around.
That's okay. So, Spider-Man No Way Home leaks and the Spider-Verse in live action. So, oh man, right before that trailer hit, we of course had a massive leak, which was the trailer.
And everything else.
And then just about everything else you could imagine leaking in regards to it, in fact, did leak. Like photos, like descriptions of scenes that we kind of knew were going to be happening, and people went back to old reports from forever ago, and they line up perfectly. So,
I say there's an old plot leak, like a full plot leak that I've seen. Someone retweeted it because they put Daniel RPK's name in it, and you know it's not him because I've read this before and it wasn't from his Patreon. So they're trying to push that as an RPK leak, and it's like, yeah, I remember that being old from Reddit or something.
I was gonna say, I remember specifically from Reddit when somebody put in, it was deleted because they said it
clearly fake.
Yeah, clearly fake and wrong, and now somebody's dug it up, and we even covered in one thing, and everything we said in it and everything that's in it, honestly, it looks like it's 100% on point with everything that's leaking, to the point where it's like, yeah, both Spider-Men are back and all this. Here's the plot. Here's the Doctor Strange moments. I remember there was even a coincidental one that was like, oh, when you see the Sanctum, it's going to be covered in snow. And everybody was like, oh, well, that makes sense. It's in winter. It's like, no, they meant the Sanctum is covered in snow. It's very, very on point with everything in there. So, I don't know. What do you make of it, of all these leaks?
I mean, I'm curious now because I've seen that there have been multiple, here's the plot of the movie. And I've only read one. So I'm curious just to see which one this is lining up with. Because I don't want to say the thing that I think is happening, because obvious spoilers for this movie that's not even out and probably won't be out till next year.
People should know to expect spoilers here, so we can talk about it openly. If you don't want to spoil, don't listen to the podcast.
Okay,
just skip to the next topic.
Yeah,
don't stop.
Well,
skip.
Okay, valid. The only one I'm familiar with is the one that then the main thing I remember is that it says that Norman Green Goblin kills Toby, and that part of the multiversal hoopla is but that's the thing. I distinctly remember them not even bringing up Strange and the spell, so never mind. That one can't be accurate. No, I saw the leak. I watched the leak trailer. I saw some of the pictures floating around. I didn't know what to make of them. The Jamie Foxx one at first I thought was fake. Truth be told, I was like, this could just be any still from Jamie Foxx in a movie where they put him in an electrician outfit, same. And then, there's the picture of Willem Dafoe. Here he looks very classic Green Goblin. Not very, you can see him from the neck down, but
yeah.
Those excite me a lot because, as we've said, whenever I've been on, to talk MCU TV with Mitch, Phase 4 has not missed with their costuming yet. And if we're gonna get a proper Green Goblin costume in this movie, I'm gonna go off. If we're getting Green Goblin, also give Doc Ock that ridiculous green and yellow armor. Come on, please, Megan. That or Superior Spider-Man. I'll take whichever.
If only.
But all of these leaks are crazy, and I can't believe the degree to which some of the stuff has leaked. Obviously, there was that one picture with all the scaffolding, that's been floating around. This is wild.
There's a lot of stuff out there, and it's one of these things where you're looking at it and you're just kind of going, realistically, you can kind of piece together the entire film and everything in your head, and for better or for worse. And there were some other interesting things in there that clearly were out there among the leaks that Sony even took down like an audition tape from Miles Morales that made its way online, and then that was quickly.
Oh, Jesus!
Yeah, that was a thing, and one of those leaks specifically mentioned it being like, "Oh, he's gonna be one of the Spider-Man you've seen the multiverse." It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like that works. I don't know. There's a lot. I'm excited for everything that could possibly come at us with this and what they're gonna drop. So. Mitch, you've also looked around a bit and the trailer and everything they're doing, and most people have suspected as well. There's probably missing elements of the trailers that they've cut out. Like,
see, I don't know if they're doing, because everyone knows that at this point, right? I don't know if they're gonna, you sidestep back to just showing a normal trailer and you have everyone think you cut stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's people being like, oh, that's clearly not Tom Holland at the end. It's obviously Tobey Maguire. And I'm just like, but is he? Because people are thinking that scene is the same as when Doc Ock's there. And it's like, that might not be.
Oh.
That's like, it's probably the same scenes, but it's not in order, right?
Yeah.
Like, we see like the pumpkin bomb come down, explode and everything. Like, I think it's more for that. And that's your first time seeing Norman, and then Doc Ock comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you also have fans thinking that that's not Doctor Strange helping Peter. It's Mephisto.
Yeah.
I don't get what this weird obsession is with Mephisto.
I don't get what's with people.
That's what I don't know what it is either. It's just like that's not Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange wouldn't act like that.
And it's like, guys, 15 years for the last 15 odd years, it's probably slightly more, slightly less. It's give or take. People have hated the mention of Mephisto around Spider-Man. People have hated it. You can't even mention it without people losing their shit, right? So why all of a sudden is Mephisto the one thing people want?
I've noticed it's a lot of the casuals that are just picking up on it that have never picked up a thing. Like I know, and I don't mean to sound like the comic book elitist here, and I'm sorry if it comes off that way, but all my friends that end up sharing this multiverse thing is stupid. Casting a spell, why don't you just use a Skrull? I'm like, you clearly don't understand who the Skrulls are, and you're saying that because the meme, and you've never picked up the comic or know why. Like, it's this whole problem, and the whole Doctor Strange is like, he's acting weird and full of himself. I'm like, bro, he never ages out of that. He always has a superiority complex. Like,
it's literally Stephen Strange. Oh, he'd never do that. Well, he gave up the stone to Thanos.
Yeah.
He broke the rules to win his own movie. So,
hey guys, no, I don't get the whole Mephisto thing or anything, or some of these bigger insane complaints. To me, at face value, everything they're showing us is exactly what we know. They're not hiding anything, I don't think. Like, in the final trailer, we're gonna see Garfield and Tobey Maguire. They're gonna be in that final trailer. Like, it's
they'll be in it before the final trailer.
You would
Unless
assume.
they do it how everyone's thinking, where it's like, this trailer you had the reveal of one Toby villain and a tease of another. Like, they were the two that if the next trailer is going to be the Garfield villains.
Oh, and then the final trailer.
One's going to be the Holland villains.
Boy,
this is the thing. People are talking about because it's a Sinister Six. Like, we all know it. Sony's wanted to do it since TASM 1. We all know where they're going with it. They've been, even the MCU Spider-Man movies, people have been talking about Sinister Six because you got to do the Sinister Six for Spider-Man. It's kind of like a rite of passage for them. And it's like, who's going to be that six? Because we see, the pumpkin bomb for Goblin, we see Doc Ock, we see the lightning for Electro, we see what people assume is Lizard, we see what people are assuming is Sandman, which those two are kind of like, duh.
Yep.
But people are saying Rhino for the sixth. Now, I don't buy that in the slightest.
Unless it's Paul Giamatti literally chewing the entire time, I don't want it.
Yeah, they just want Giamatti to show up out of nowhere in that random suit.
It's like, the reason I don't buy it is because it's not 2x2 then.
Yeah.
Have 3 Spider-Men and 6 villains. Well, you don't... Why would Marvel ever be like, oh yeah, we're just going to overshadow the $1 billion Spider-Man? Like,
right.
Why would you ever do especially when you got people like Keaton and I think it's kind of obvious you get Jake Gyllenhaal back from Mysterio.
Exactly. And also, you run into a ton of issues with the problem of the approach you take at the villains, because I do want to point this out. The Goblin looks like it's probably not going to be the same Goblin. Doc Ock is slightly different, so they could be playing with a whole variant factor as well, which we've talked about before. Like,
I've had this conversation.
I came back at the perfect moment. Okay.
I mean, I had this conversation.
Like if it's like
if they're the Raimi versions or the web versions or what, they're still technically variant.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter. Like, people are gonna get mad at that. It's like no.
Like if it's not Mysterio, it might just be Vulture.
Yeah, but then
either that or
villain is the question. Like you need two Holland villains in the Sinister Six lineup.
They could also use Scorpion.
Yeah, but Scorpion's not set up is the thing. He's been teased.
I know. Yeah, I know that.
Do you want to hear my crazy theory? They're gonna use two Holland villains. It's gonna be Vulture, and it's gonna be like
Shocker.
You know, it could be, but what is gonna happen is we're gonna have a variant of Tom Holland Spider-Man from the Venom verse, so they can have two parallel Tom Holland Spider-Man. So Marvel Studios can keep a Tom Holland over here, and then they go, but check it out. Remember that variant you saw in that Multiverse movie? He's interacting with Venom, and now we can all play in our own playgrounds and have everything you want. Like, I honestly think that's how they do it, and you keep the Holland versions from the MCU only to like Mysterio, because he's got to be around. There's no way he's dead.
I was gonna say there's no way. He's too big of a part of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Too big of a part.
Yeah.
I am inclined to agree. I also really like the idea, and I want to say the first person I saw say it. There might be other people talking about this. Obviously, there's people talking about the trailer. I mean, this theory in particular.
Oh, are there? I didn't know.
Yeah, it's a little popular. The idea that these variants of Doc Ock, of Green Goblin, Electro, all killed their Spider-Man. And
I like that.
Yeah.
I believe it was Mr. Sunday Movies. He was the first person I saw bring this up. And I really like the idea that, like, the whole... Because I saw people understandably going, when Alfred Molina said, oh, yeah, he was plucked from that moment on the river. It was like, well, he's rather evil for somebody who just sacrificed himself.
Yeah.
That's a little odd, But if it's that moment on the river while he was pulling his tentacle out of Peter's chest,
I mean, there's also, since you're on that wavelength, there's also the possibility of, and I know that this might not be something that some people like because it's not the same version, but what if, when they are getting pulled and he's saying all that, well, there's a real possibility that they lie to them. And Kevin Feige was like, oh yeah, this is from the ending of Spider-Man 2, this is what's happened. And he doesn't know that he killed Spider-Man in that instance at the moment, like you said. Like, they could have lied to these actors just to prevent that from coming out. That's not unheard of. They literally did it to everybody at the end of Endgame when they thought it was a wedding and not a funeral for Tony Stark. So,
There's also a really simple solution to it as well. Doctor Strange literally says you can mess with, like, time and space.
Yeah.
Key component of that being time.
Yep.
You just rewind them slightly. I know, obviously, he said he got pulled out from that moment in the river, but it's just like, it could still be from that moment, but the character itself gets rewound back to an earlier, more villainous.
Yeah. I really like the idea that these are all villains who won.
Yeah.
I think that I think it adds a lot more tension. Because on some level, as fun as it is to see this multiversal Sinister Six, we've seen all of them be defeated. Like, that's been the point of their character, to be defeated by Spider-Man.
And that could be a good angle, too, where these villains that defeated their Spider-Man show up, and Doctor Strange is like, well, we can get some heroes that beat all these variants. Check it out. And then they pull in the ones we know that have defeated them, like the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield from the films we saw. It's like, oh, that's a clever way. So they're not really fighting the ones we saw. They're fighting. Yeah, it's like it's a good way to do it, right? Like it's smart enough and enough change that it's not a repeat and a retread. Because like,
Yeah.
why would Doc Ock be evil after he just redeemed himself to save everybody? Like, what? That's yeah.
I mean, I'll be annoyed if I went to sacrifice myself, fell through a star, and woke up somewhere else. Be like, oh god damn it meant nothing.
And that's one of the other things that, like,
own.
part of me was a little disappointed seeing that picture, like the leak, like the very pixelated like picture on the scaffolding of Toby and Andrew, because we talked about this forever ago. Mitch and I think it was like the first time you guys had me on. Whereas the idea of just because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire are in this doesn't mean they're necessarily playing those iterations of Peter Parker that they've already played. And that we could end up with like a grizzled old man, the Last Stand style Peter. And, you know, it was like basically what that fan art suggested that I loved. It was like Last Stand Peter with Tobey and Andrew's in the black suit. And how freaking cool that would have been.
Yeah.
And I'm not disappointed. That like it's there, that it's clearly like, okay, TASM 2, Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not disappointed. Like I'm not like upset with it. Part of me just wishes they swung for the fence a little harder. And when, you know, we're gonna use the fact that these actors are iconic, and just kind of go for it.
I will make a prediction
with that
because
idea.
When this film is huge and everybody agrees to a new contract, I think we're going to see an obvious Spider-Man 4 with Holland, an obvious Spider-Man versus Venom for Sony, and then we're just going to get a sequel that's a live-action Spider-Verse even bigger and better. It's like, no, we're just going to keep this as a whole event film. It's you know.
I mean, you really want a Spider-Man versus Venom movie?
No, but they're going to do it.
Do you know how hard Todd McFarlane is going to shield his stuff if that happens?
Look, I get.
Yeah, but he ain't gonna get paid anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, it's free publicity for him, man.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We'll be back to talking about more of the live-action Spider-Verse, but for now.